Hi, everybody, and welcome to Page and Screen with John Paul Sarni. And as the song goes, summer's over, but the good news is that fall is here, and when fall is tumbling towards us, there's also usually a huge pile of great new books. So I want to have a little chat about really what's coming down the line. So here are 20 books that I'm excited about for the coming months until we get to the holidays. The first is Entitlement by Rumaan Alam, who, if you saw the Netflix adaptation of his book, Leave the World Behind, you might understand why I'm still sort of shaking because of it. So I'm very excited to read his new novel, which is called Entitlement, which comes out on the 17th of September, which promises to delve into ideas of race and class and the idea of who is deserving. So that's not a lot to go on, but I don't want to give too much away. So that's one that I'm very excited about coming up. Also, coming up in September on the 24th is arguably one of the biggest fiction books of the fall, Intermezzo by Sally Rooney, and I'm sure that people just pronounce it Intermezzo, but it's Intermezzo. And the BookTok and the Bookstagram folks have been screaming about this one since the galleys first went out, and people received them or didn't receive them, and they were maybe salty about it, by all of the influencers that work in the book space. The story centers on two brothers who are dealing with the sudden death of their father and all that entails. So that is probably going to be one of the biggest books of the fall. Another big book of the fall is the new mystery from the author of The Darkness, which we here at Stampede have adapted into a television series that's coming out soon. His new book is Death at the Sanatorium. There it is. Death at the Sanatorium. It lives in the same universe and has some of the same characters as the Darkness series. And I'm actually going to be chatting with Ragnar Jonasson, the author, on the podcast next month about both the series adaptation of The Darkness as well as this new book, which will be part of a series as well. There's also a book that people are very excited about because it is an homage to the world of books, which is called The City and Its Uncertain Walls by Haruki Murakami, which comes out on the 19th of November from Knopf. Murakami has been perhaps famously, I think the phrase is, deeply ambivalent about having his work adapted, but this is his first full-length novel in 6 years. And we're very excited about it coming out. Everyone on the Grams and the Twitter are, on the TikToks rather, are Twitter. So the book is revisiting a town that his readers might remember, a place where a dream reader reviews dreams and where our shadows become untethered from ourselves. A love story, a quest, an ode to books and the libraries that house them, and a parable for these strange post-pandemic times. Another one that big book fans are going to love is Elizabeth Strout's new book, which is Tell Me Everything, which brings us back to the world of Olive Kittredge, and that comes out on the 10th of September. So it lives in the same town and the characters that people already know from her previous works. There's also, back in the murder mystery space, We Solve Murders by Richard Osman, coming out on the 17th of September. This is the author of The Thursday Murder Club. The Thursday Murder Club, a lot of you have already read. It's the film is currently shooting with Helen Mirren and Pierce Brosnan and Ben Kingsley, but he's back with this new series, which has already been optioned to Netflix, and it's a father/daughter-in-law who solve mysteries. So that'll be a fun one, and ostensibly the first in a series as well. And in the commercial fiction space, again, and with the mystery theme continuing, John Grisham has never failed to deliver a great blockbuster book every fall for Doubleday, his publisher. So this year, however, he's teaming up with Jim McCloskey to share 10 true stories of wrongful convictions. And if you've ever read the back flap of his other books, you know that this is something that is very important to him, and he's been campaigning on and been at the forefront of for many years. So it'll be very interesting for him to turn his attention to this nonfiction world. There's the book Want, Sexual Fantasies by Anonymous, which Gillian Anderson has compiled. That comes out also September the 17th. Very much in the spirit of her character on sex education, I think. Her new book is a curated collection of anonymous sexual fantasies from women around the world. We also have coming out in November now Norse Mythology, the Illustrated Edition by Neil Gaiman. Gaiman's edition on Norse mythology, when it came out a handful of years ago, it kind of became an instant classic. And now there's a new, very lusciously illustrated volume that's coming out for the holidays. So that'll be a great one for gift giving. In nonfiction, again, we have Beyond Vanity, The History and Power of Hairdressing by Elizabeth L. Block, which is a new book that looks at really the 19th century world that starts talking about hair as a major fashion statement, and what happened from the likes of Sarah Bernhardt to Maud Adams and beyond, and really identifying one's place in society just as much as frocks do as well. And speaking of fashion, The Met, A History of a Museum and Its People by Jonathan Conlon comes out in October. This is from Columbia University Press, and it is a bottom-up history of the Met, with accounts from curators, artists, museum goers, and even security guards. 150 years on, this is a new history of the museum for a new generation. Another book that we will be featuring here on Page and Screen is Straight Acting, which is The Hidden Queer Lives of William Shakespeare, which is started, I believe, as from Will Tosh, who is the head of research at the Globe Theatre, as an exploration of the queer moments that can be found in Shakespeare's work on stage, also his sonnets, and also certain moments in his life. And it really became a kind of biography, not a full cradle-to-grave biography, but we look at the lost years of Shakespeare's life, which are very interesting because he was away from his family for the better part of a decade when he started out in London, and everything that he encountered. And it's a really exciting book. It was really enjoyable for me to read, and I got completely swept up into the world of Shakespeare all over again. I studied theater. I came from the theater, which is a very easy transition to go to film and television. So this was a fun one. This one is coming out on the 17th of September. Also, it's a very big book day, that 17th of September. We also have coming out in October, Disco, Music, Movies, and Mania Under the Mirrorball. Frank DeCaro has written this. It's coming out from Rizzoli. It is, Frank is a hilarious and delightful human being. He and I worked together at Sirius XM Radio some years ago. And actually, the very beginnings of this podcast was me stopping by various talk shows at Sirius and really just talking to everybody about all the books that were coming out, the movies that were coming out, the shows that were on Broadway, and the concerts, and just getting very excited about everything in culture. And so Frank and I have known each other for a long time. He had a great book from the same publisher that came out called Drag a few years ago that was beautifully done, nice coffee table books. So this new one that focuses on disco is going to be really fun. And so we're talking to him the day it comes out, actually, the 8th of October. That episode, it'll be he and I together here in the studio. So that'll be a fun one to have a look at. Also coming into the studio in a few weeks is Catherine Bucknell, who has written Christopher Isherwood Inside Out. This is a huge, chunky, I love my chunky books. This is a chunky doorstopper of a book that is an exploration into the life and work of the man who would write what later became Cabaret. So I Am Camera and all those iterations. So it's a deep dive into Isherwood's life and the years leading up to World War II in Europe and the US as it pertained to artists who fought, fled, and chronicled all of that incredible generation. So she's coming by. She'll be sitting here in the studio with me as well. So I'm very excited to talk to her. She is really an expert on all things Isherwood and has edited a couple editions of his journals and diaries in the past as well. There is a book, completely switching gears. There's a book called Bedtime Stories for Privileged Children by Daniel Fox. Daniel Fox is a British writer and performer for the stage that I have seen his work previously. And this is, if you look him up on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, you will see him reading snippets from this book. Again, it's called Bedtime Stories for Privileged Children. I think he's probably one of the funniest people to ever grace a stage at the Fringe Festival or really anywhere on the internet. So I would say, please go have a look, and you can hear him read little snippets with a bowl full of Chardonnay as he goes. Another book that I'm very excited about coming out is another guest coming to the podcast here is Andre Asselman's Roman Year. So this is the book that from the author of Call Me by Your Name that is really about his coming of age years on the cusp of adulthood when he moved to Rome. And so this is a book that I'm very excited to talk to him about. We'll be talking, I believe, in New York, and so we'll have a nice chat about that. But I think that will also be one of the big books of the fall. That one comes out October the 22nd, so keep an eye out for that. Fascinating book about history, our more recent history, is The Rising, the 20-year battle to rebuild the World Trade Center. And this book by Larry Silverstein is pretty remarkable because Larry Silverstein is a man who ostensibly was the landlord, owned the building by a collection of banks and all that sort of thing. But he narrowly escaped by happenstance, actually being in the building the morning of September 11th. And this now becomes the journey about how to break ground there again, and what that means, and politically, and and culturally, like how is that done? So that's another exciting book to keep an eye out for. Also coming back to the folds, Stanley Tucci, who had a great book a couple years ago called Taste, which really was about the world of food, but also dipped into a lot of the work he did and living in different parts of the world, including Iceland and the food there, and where I spent some time on the Ragnar Jonasson adaptation of The Darkness. But Stanley Tucci's new book is called What I Ate in 1 Year and Related Thoughts. So, so this is really just goes through an entire year, and it's a bit of a journal, the food-centric journal that is coming out soon. He's doing quite a lot of talks about this both in the UK and I think New York. So, keep an eye out for that one. And then a couple other books in the food space, just to mention briefly. My Mexican Kitchen, 100 Recipes Rich with Tradition, Flavor, and Spice, from Eva Longoria, who has done a series for CNN chronicling the world of food in Mexico. And this is a cookbook from Clarkson Potter, which really makes the best cookbooks. They're really beautifully done. So I'm excited for that one to come out on the 29th of October. And lastly, in the food world, but adjacent to it, is Ina Garten's long-awaited memoir, which is called Be Ready When the Luck Happens. Comes out on the 1st of October for my birthday. And it goes from sort of travels with her from her time in Washington, D.C., to the Hamptons, to her career and the 13 cookbooks that she wrote, and the decades that she's now been inviting us into her home. Both with her television show, with a podcast, with shows during the pandemic when she was doing videos with people. So that'll be an exciting one to read as well. So there's it's quite the slew of books, but these are just 20 books that I'm excited about for the fall. If you look below or above, somewhere around the box that I'm talking in right now, you'll probably find a link where you can go ahead and either buy all these books and support independent bookstores, or at the very least just have the list, so you can take the list to your local independent bookshop and pick up copies as you go. So that is a fall book preview. I hope everyone had a lovely summer, and for me, this is the best part, to start getting excited about what is coming down the line as the weather gets a little bit crispy and becomes sweater weather. So anyway, thank you very much. This has been Page and Screen with John Paul Sarni, and I will talk to you next time.